Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. This one's going out to Niner fans, near, far, NFL fans, sports fans. You all are welcome here, and you know it. Tonight, we are talking about predictions. Where are some of the big-name quarterbacks going to be playing come September 2022? It's going to be fun. Let's get into it. So, the first quarterback we are going to talk about is the soon-to-be back-to-back MVP, the bad man, Aaron Rodgers. Where is Rodgers going to play in 2022? Let's get a little drum roll, please. Bam. Aaron Rodgers will be staying with the Green Bay Packers, in my opinion. Of course, we saw it over the offseason. There was all that talk, all that speculation of Aaron Rodgers wanting out of Green Bay, but I just don't see at this point why he would want to go. You also have recent reports that the relationship between himself and their general manager, Brian Gutekunst, has gotten a lot better. It's a great situation. You have probably the best receiver in the NFL in Davante Adams. You have a great run game. You're getting a bunch of guys back healthy. You've just clinched the number one seed in the NFC, and it's just an awesome situation. I don't know why he would want to go anywhere else. LaFleur has been just an amazing head coach for them. The defense has been a lot better this season than what you'd expect. Think about it, Green Bay's defense, missing Jair, missing Za'Darius, and they're still playing lights out. I think Rodgers eventually comes to his senses, and the Packers are like, yes, we're going to invest in another wide receiver. We're going to invest in the offensive line and make sure that he's happy. But I think Rodgers gets maybe like a 2 or 3 year extension. Perhaps the Packers look to move on from Jordan Love. Depending on Jordan Love's thought process, I'm sure he wants to get on the field, start playing. But my prediction is Aaron Rodgers stays with the Green Bay Packers. Alrighty, the next quarterback we are going to be talking about in this video is DeShaun Watson, the young superstar quarterback who currently is still with the Houston Texans, but according to me, won't be there for much longer. In my prediction, I think he ends up going to the Big Apple, New York City, although they play in New Jersey. I think this is a trade for both teams that both teams just have to make. The Giants, they have had a terrible record for years on end, ever since Eli Manning left, and even in the last couple years he was there. They haven't been good. They need a fresh face of the franchise. A guy like DeShaun Watson would be awesome. I also predict the Giants basically clean house with their coaching staff, with their general manager, start fresh. You have still a very young superstar quarterback under contract for a long time. Build around him, get football fans excited, get Giants fans excited about their team again, and just really go from there. Houston, why are they doing this trade? Well, when you look at what happened last offseason, so basically Houston called DeShaun Watson's bluff, being like, you're not going to sit out the whole season. And then DeShaun Watson called their bluff and was like, oh, yes, I am. And now, of course, there's also allegations about DeShaun Watson. So for the sake of this video and for the sake of like what I think the trade compensation would be, I'm going to assume the allegations are basically dropped, but it doesn't look the best. But assuming that, I think the Houston Texans get a bunch of stuff in return. I'm predicting they get the Giants picks, both of their first-round picks coming up in April. That right now is the 5th and the 8th overall picks. I also predict they get another first-round pick in 2023, in addition to Daniel Jones. So Houston, they're getting a young quarterback in Daniel Jones who's shown flashes. I don't think he's a franchise guy, but maybe someone who can hold down the spot for a year or so. And then with the Texans, you now have 3 picks in the top 8 in this draft. Maybe you use one of them on Kenny Pickett, the quarterback out of Pittsburgh. Use another couple of picks on some guys to build around him, and then you go from there and you see what you got and you move forward. Obviously, things haven't worked out with DeShaun, and you got to make the move. And I think this is one that makes sense for both teams. The next quarterback I will be talking about is going to be Russell-mania, Russell Wilson. And where do I think he's going to end up this offseason? Well, my prediction is that things are not going to work out in Seattle. He ends up elsewhere. Where's that going to be? Well, let's hit that drum roll again. I think he takes his talents to South Beach. I think he becomes a Miami Dolphin. Now, let's break down and see why both teams would do this. Seattle, well, looks like the relationship between Russell and them has really fragmented, really broken down. Himself and Pete Carroll seemingly haven't been getting along the best, and it sounds like Russell Wilson wants out of Seattle. So they got to make a move, make a trade, and in this scenario, they get back a young quarterback who's looked pretty darn good and plays a similar style of game to Russell Wilson in Tua Tagovailoa, and they also get back 2 first-round picks to maybe build around him. And now Tua going to Seattle would be going to a good situation in terms of DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Maybe Seattle uses a couple of those first-round picks on offensive linemen to give him some time, but I think the Seahawks will ultimately move on, and this is a decent haul for him. Russell Wilson's getting a little bit older, and of course has a huge contract hit on the cap, so maybe not as huge. Not going to get the same return as DeShaun Watson, who's a lot younger, but I think it's a move that Seattle's going to have to make. With Miami, look, you're in a division with Buffalo, who has a young Josh Allen. Mac Jones is seemingly looking to be a pretty darn good quarterback, so they got to have a superstar guy in there. I think Tua's pretty good, but do I think he's going to be great or elite? I don't think so. So they get a guy who can win you football games by himself. Russell Wilson, just, unbelievable player. He's destroyed my 49ers for years. I've seen what he can do. Plus, you throw in him, you have Jalen Waddle, you have Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, so they have just like weapons all over the place. And I think Russell Wilson would do really well there. And going to that division, it would be great, really fun division to watch. But overall, again, similar to the DeShaun Watson to Giants trade, I think it's one that works out for both teams, allows both teams to move forward, and both teams, really it's some win-win, of course, and we'll see how it goes. Last but not least, and of course, I feel like a lot of people are going to say he's not a top quarterback, and I don't totally disagree with you, but we're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. And if you guys have seen my earlier video where I talk about a Jimmy Garoppolo trade, you probably already know where I think he's going to go. And my prediction is that Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded to the one more time Denver Broncos. I think Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded to Denver. Now, Denver and San Francisco have had multiple trades ever since John Lynch became the general manager. There's a lot of a really great working relationship between the two franchises. Of course, the 49ers are going to have to move on because they have Trey Lance. You want to clear out Jimmy Garoppolo's contract and be able to extend guys like Nick Bosa, Debo, maybe bring in a free agent cornerback, and maybe get a draft pick back in return. For Denver, Teddy Bridgewater ain't the answer. Drew Lock sure as hell isn't the answer. And you get a guy Jimmy Garoppolo, who's had a great winning percentage in San Francisco. You bring him into Denver. They have a great situation in Denver with a lot of young weapons. Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, a great young running back in Javonte Williams, solid offensive line. I think it's a great situation for Garoppolo. Vic Fangio's job, I'm sure that seat he's on is getting a little bit hot, so he'll want to bring in a winner. And then I think that Denver, maybe even in the first round, looks to draft a quarterback. So maybe they have Garoppolo for a couple of years, draft a guy in the first or second round, develop him behind Garoppolo, and then let that guy be the future. But I think it's a trade that really puts Denver in a pretty solid situation, And again, just Jimmy Garoppolo just seems to, get the best out of guys. And players play for Garoppolo. So I think it'd be a wise move for Denver. Even though I don't think he's a long-term solution, I think they'll get back maybe a third round, or they give up a third round pick to San Francisco. And it's pretty solid to have a quarterback who can maybe play a couple of good years for you while you look for the long-term solution elsewhere. But yeah, that's going to about do it. There are, of course, a lot of other moving parts around the NFL, a lot of other really interesting players we could talk about who I think ultimately won't get traded, which would be guys like we're hearing maybe Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. You could have some interesting backups like a Gardner Minshew. Could he want to go somewhere, become a starter? But for right now, these are the 4 guys I wanted to talk about the most. Feel free and please leave comments on your thoughts about where my predictions here. What are some of your predictions? Let's get a good discussion going. And then, of course, we'll lead the discussion into the live stream that's coming on Sunday. Again, the Rams game, we'll talk about this video. But, want to hear from you guys. And, that's about going to wrap it up. I am going to have a preview of the Week 18, weird to say Week 18, first time we're doing that, game at the LA Rams, which of course is a huge game for the 49ers to try and get into the playoffs. I'm going to probably have that video out maybe Thursday or Friday. I want to leave it a little bit later in the week, so maybe we'll get some news on whether it's going to be Garoppolo or Trey Lance starting, and then also the Niners have had a couple of defensive players apparently pick up COVID, so hopefully they'll be clear and all good to go, and we'll hear news on that before I do the preview. That's going to wrap it up for tonight. I do appreciate everyone stopping by and all the support for the channel, and I think you guys know what I'm about to say, and that's going to catch y'all on the flip side.